In the vast, sun-baked stretches of Route 66, a family set out on what was supposed to be an unforgettable adventure. On a warm summer day in 2011, the Johnson family, father, mother, and their two young children, vanished without a trace. Their journey, filled with laughter and promise, abruptly turned into a haunting mystery that gripped the nation. For 12 long years, silence reigned, leaving friends and loved ones to grapple with heartache and uncertainty. But then, in the parched depths of a dry lakebed, an unexpected discovery would reignite a chilling investigation: a rusted car, buried in the sands of time, still bearing the family's name. As news broke of the car's recovery, the hearts of the Johnsons' family and friends raced with a mix of hope and dread. What secrets lay hidden within the confines of the vehicle? For the family's matriarch, Ellen Johnson, the sudden resurfacing of the car was both a beacon of possibility and a painful reminder of everything she had lost. Her husband, Mark, and their children, Lily and Jake, had been her world. The unanswered questions of their disappearance haunted her every waking moment. Now, after more than a decade, this new clue could either lead to closure or plunge her deeper into despair. The Johnsons had set off from their home in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with the intention of exploring America's historic highways. They had mapped out their journey, filled with stops at quirky roadside attractions and small-town diners. Yet somewhere along the way, they seemingly vanished, leaving behind no signs of struggle, no clues as to their whereabouts. Search parties scoured the area, law enforcement launched extensive investigations, and local media covered the story extensively, but every lead turned cold. With each passing year, Ellen clung to the hope that they would be found. But as the anniversary of their disappearance approached, that hope dimmed, leaving her with nothing but memories and unanswered prayers. Then, in a twist of fate, the car was discovered by a group of off-road adventurers exploring the desolate terrain. At first, the discovery seemed like just another relic of a bygone era, a forgotten vehicle lost to the sands of time. But when the authorities arrived, they quickly recognized the significance of what had been found. The vehicle was identified as the Johnson family's, and the scene stirred a resurgence of interest in a case that had long been overshadowed by newer mysteries. Ellen couldn't believe it. After all these years, an actual piece of her family's history had resurfaced. She remembered the day they left, the smiles on her children's faces, the warmth of her husband's hand in hers as they drove into the sunset. But now, this discovery brought forth a torrent of questions. Why was the car in a remote lakebed? What had happened to her family? Ellen felt an urgency unlike any she had experienced before, a calling to dive into the investigation and uncover the truth that had eluded her for so long. However, she soon faced resistance. The local authorities had largely moved on, convinced that the case was a tragic mystery destined to remain unsolved. Many of them viewed Ellen's inquiries with skepticism. To them, the years of unanswered questions had dulled the urgency of the case. Yet Ellen's determination ignited a fire within her. She began to sift through records, piecing together the last known movements of her family. With each document she reviewed, she uncovered a tantalizing clue that hinted at something darker than anyone had imagined. As she delved deeper, Ellen discovered that the Johnson family had been living more complex lives than she had ever realized. What she once perceived as a normal family dynamic began to unravel under the weight of hidden secrets and untold stories. Conversations she had with Mark about their dreams, the excitement of their family trip, and even concerns about finances took on new meanings. Could there have been a hidden motive that led to their disappearance? Was it a tragic accident, or was there something more sinister at play? Throughout this journey, Ellen faced moments of self-doubt. Could she truly find the answers she so desperately sought? Could she confront the reality that her family may not have vanished due to mere misfortune, but perhaps due to a web of deception and betrayal? Despite the weight of uncertainty, Ellen continued forward, driven by her unwavering love for her husband and children. Every detail she uncovered felt like a piece of a larger puzzle that had been meticulously hidden away. From cryptic messages in old emails to the unsettling stories of people who had encountered the Johnsons along Route 66, Ellen began to connect the dots that had long been overlooked. With every new lead, the possibility of closure loomed closer. But so did the realization that the truth could be more complicated than she had ever imagined. Ellen Johnson was not just a mother searching for her lost family. She was a woman determined to unveil a mystery that had haunted her for over a decade. The road ahead was fraught with danger, skepticism, and heartache, but Ellen's resolve was unbreakable. As she prepared to confront the shadows of her family's past, she knew that the truth was waiting to be unearthed, a truth that would change everything. Join us as we embark on this harrowing journey, exploring the depths of loss, the resilience of the human spirit, and the dark secrets that lie beneath the surface of a long-forgotten case. In the end, the Johnson family's story is more than just a mystery. It is a testament to the enduring power of hope and the lengths one will go to uncover the truth. Ellen pored over the files she had gathered, each document a piece of a puzzle she was desperate to complete. The haunting images of her family, frozen in time, were a constant reminder of what was at stake. With every email she read, a feeling of unease settled deeper into her bones. It seemed that the closer she got to the truth, the more elusive it became. Her investigation led her back to Route 66, the very road where her family had vanished. She decided to retrace their journey, visiting the small towns and roadside attractions they had once stopped at. Each conversation with locals unearthed fragments of memories, some vague, others startlingly vivid. There were whispers of odd encounters and strange sightings, hints of a life that her family might have lived in those final days. One particular name kept resurfacing, a man known locally as Slick. Described as charming yet shady, he was rumored to have connections that ran deep in the underbelly of the region. Ellen felt a chill run down her spine. Could he have been involved? Could he hold the key to unlocking the dark mystery of her family's fate? Despite the warnings from law enforcement to leave the past buried, Ellen's gut instinct urged her to dig deeper. She reached out to a private investigator, a grizzled veteran of unsolved cases who understood the stakes all too well. Together, they combed through records, searching for any sign of Slick. What they discovered was unsettling, a string of disappearances, all leading back to the same man. Ellen felt the weight of their findings. Each revelation brought her closer to the truth, yet the shadows grew darker. The risk of confronting someone who could be dangerous loomed over her, but Ellen's resolve only hardened. She had come too far to turn back now. With a renewed sense of determination, she prepared for an encounter with Slick. As she approached the place where he was last seen, her heart raced. Would he be the key to understanding what happened to her family, or would he be a gateway to even more peril? In that moment, Ellen understood that confronting the past could come at a cost. The truth, no matter how dark, was waiting for her, but it demanded courage and sacrifice. She was ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that justice for her family was worth every risk. The final piece of the puzzle was within reach, and she would stop at nothing to find it. As Ellen stood outside the dilapidated bar where Slick was rumored to frequent, she felt a mix of fear and determination. The air was thick with tension, the kind that warned her of the dangers lurking just beneath the surface. Inside, the dim lighting cast long shadows across the worn wooden floor, where patrons shared hushed conversations, their eyes darting suspiciously toward the door. Taking a deep breath, Ellen stepped inside. The scent of stale beer and smoke hung in the air as she scanned the room, looking for the man who might hold the key to her family's fate. Her heart pounded in her chest as she approached the bar, where a grizzled bartender wiped a glass with a rag that looked as old as the establishment itself. "Do you know where I can find Slick?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. The bartender's eyes narrowed, and he hesitated before nodding toward a shadowy corner booth. Ellen's pulse quickened as she turned to see a figure hunched over a drink, shrouded in darkness. She steeled herself and walked toward him, each step echoing the gravity of her mission. "Slick?" she inquired, her voice barely above a whisper. The man raised his head, revealing a weathered face and eyes that had seen too much. "Depends on who's asking," he replied, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. Ellen felt a chill run down her spine. She knew this conversation could lead to answers, but it also reeked of danger. She pressed on, revealing her connection to the vanished family. His expression shifted, a flicker of recognition sparking in his eyes. "I've heard about you," he said, leaning back in his seat. "You're the one chasing ghosts." "I'm looking for the truth," Ellen insisted. "I need to know what happened to them." Slick's demeanor changed, his playful attitude replaced by a guardedness that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. "The truth? It's not always what you want it to be," he warned. "You might be better off leaving it buried." Ellen's resolve faltered for a moment as she processed his words. Was he trying to protect her, or was he hiding something more sinister? "I'm not afraid of the truth," she replied, her voice firm. "I'll do whatever it takes to find out what you know." Slick studied her for a long moment before leaning in closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You should be," he warned. "There are people who don't want this story told. People who will go to great lengths to keep it quiet." Just as Ellen opened her mouth to respond, the sound of footsteps approached, heavy and deliberate. A man emerged from the shadows, a menacing figure with an air of authority that sent a jolt of fear through Ellen. Slick's demeanor shifted instantly, an edge of panic flashing across his face. "You need to leave. Now," he urged, glancing at the newcomer. Ellen's heart raced as she processed the situation. Was this the moment the investigation took a dangerous turn? The truth she sought seemed to be slipping further from her grasp, entangled in a web of threats and intimidation. With a final, desperate look at Slick, she turned and bolted for the door, her instincts screaming at her to escape. Outside, the cool night air hit her like a wave, but her mind was racing with questions. Who was the man that had come for her, and what secrets was Slick hiding? As she hurried to her car, the weight of her pursuit felt heavier than ever. Ellen knew she had to regroup, to gather her thoughts and decide how to proceed. The investigation was no longer just about her family. It had become a fight for her own safety and truth in a world where shadows lurked at every turn. The confrontation had merely begun, and the night was far from over. Ellen sat in her car, the engine idling, her breath coming in quick, shallow bursts. She clutched the steering wheel, her knuckles white against the darkness of the leather. Her heart still pounded from the confrontation, but she forced herself to think clearly. She needed a plan, a way to turn the fear she felt into determination. Her first move was to revisit the evidence she had collected. She pulled out a manila folder filled with documents, photographs, and notes. Each piece told a story, but the connections remained elusive. The urgency of the situation urged her to sift through it again. Perhaps she had missed something crucial that could piece together the clues. Ellen made her way back to her small apartment, locking the door behind her. She spread the contents of the folder across her dining table, the dim light casting long shadows on the walls. There was the original police report, the witness statements, and the photographs of the car pulled from the dry lakebed. But it was the last item, an old receipt she had found in the glove compartment, that kept gnawing at her mind. The receipt was from a gas station near the Lakebed, dated just days before her family vanished. It showed a purchase of snacks and drinks, signed by someone whose name didn't match her family's. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but one detail stood out: a scribbled note on the back, a phone number. With a sense of urgency, Ellen dialed the number, her heart racing. It rang once, twice, before going to voicemail. "This is Ellen. If you know anything about my family, please call me back. I need to find out what happened." She left the message, her voice trembling but determined. As she hung up, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. It was an unsettling thought, and she fought against the creeping paranoia that threatened to overwhelm her. She turned her phone to silent, not wanting to be distracted, as she focused on the task at hand. Days passed without a response, and Ellen grew anxious, wondering if she had taken the right approach. But she couldn't back down now. The new clues had reignited her hope, and she was determined to follow every lead. That evening, she decided to visit the gas station where the receipt had originated. Perhaps someone there could shed light on the customer who had purchased items shortly before her family's disappearance. As she approached the station, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, illuminating the desolate parking lot. Inside, she was greeted by a familiar face, Dave, the clerk she remembered from her childhood visits. His kind demeanor was a stark contrast to the heaviness in her heart. "Ellen, it's been a long time. What brings you here?" he asked, his smile fading as he noticed the tension in her voice. "I need to ask you about a receipt," she said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "From 12 years ago. Do you remember anything about a customer who came in around that time?" Dave paused, his brow furrowing as he tried to recall. "It was a busy time, but there was a couple, I think. They seemed off, like they didn't belong here." Ellen leaned forward, her heart racing. "What do you mean, off?" They were nervous, looking over their shoulders. "I remember thinking it was strange," he replied, searching his memory. "Then there was a man who came in later, acting really suspicious. I didn't think much of it at the time." Ellen's pulse quickened as she realized the connection. "Do you remember anything about that man?" Dave shook his head. "Just that he had a dark car, parked outside. I thought he was waiting for someone." Ellen's mind raced. A couple, a dark car. The pieces were beginning to fit together in a way she hadn't anticipated. She needed to find this man. She needed to know if he had anything to do with her family's disappearance. But as she left the gas station, a chill ran down her spine. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, and the feeling of being watched returned with a vengeance. Ellen couldn't shake the sense that she was getting closer to the truth, but also closer to danger. The closer she got to uncovering the past, the more perilous her pursuit became. With every step forward, she felt the web tightening around her. Ellen knew one thing for certain. She was on the verge of exposing something dark and sinister, and she had to brace herself for the storm that was about to break. Ellen spent the next few days consumed by her search for the man with the dark car. Every moment was a mix of hope and dread, as she scoured social media and local news archives for any sign of him. With each passing hour, the weight of her family's absence pressed heavier on her heart. The tension in her chest grew tighter with every lead that turned cold. Then, one afternoon, she received an anonymous tip. A message appeared in her inbox, containing a grainy photograph. The image showed a man in a dark jacket leaning against a car that matched the description from the gas station. Ellen's heart raced as she studied the photo, trying to extract any semblance of recognition. There was something about him that felt familiar, yet she couldn't quite place it. Determined to learn more, Ellen reached out to the source of the tip. After a tense conversation, she was led to a small, dimly lit bar on the outskirts of town. The bartender, an older gentleman with a weary expression, had witnessed the man in the photograph. He recalled the man showing unusual interest in her family's case. He was asking questions, real specific, the bartender revealed. Made me uneasy. Ellen's pulse quickened. This man wasn't just a passerby, he was involved in something deeper. She pressed for more details, but the bartender hesitated. "You know, some things are better left alone," he warned, his eyes darting to the door, as if expecting someone to walk in. Ignoring his warning, Ellen pushed forward. "What do you know about him?" The bartender sighed and leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I've heard whispers. They say he's connected to something dangerous. You need to be careful." A sense of foreboding washed over Ellen. She realized she was not just searching for answers, but stepping into a world of secrets and lies. As she left the bar, the weight of the bartender's words echoed in her mind. She was on the brink of unraveling a truth that could change everything. In the days that followed, Ellen felt a shadow looming over her, as if someone was watching her every move. A dark figure seemed to appear in her periphery, vanishing as soon as she turned to look. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being followed. Then, one night, she found her car had been tampered with, the tire slashed and the door left ajar. Was this a warning, or a sign that she was getting too close to something she was never meant to uncover? The fear began to settle in, yet Ellen's determination only grew stronger. She was now convinced that her family's disappearance was not an accident. It was a web woven from deceit and malice. Then the breakthrough came. While researching local crime reports, Ellen stumbled upon a name that made her blood run cold. The man from the photograph, the one the bartender warned her about, had a criminal record, connected to a string of unsolved cases involving disappearances, all eerily similar to her own family's case. The revelation struck her like a lightning bolt. The man was not just a witness, he was a potential suspect. But what was his connection to her family? What dark secret lay at the heart of this tangled mystery? Ellen's mind raced as she realized that the truth behind her family's disappearance was more complex than she had ever imagined. This was not just about a missing loved one, it was about a criminal conspiracy that reached into the very core of her community. As the pieces began to fit together, she knew she had to confront the man in the photograph. But first, she had to gather evidence. She had to connect the dots between her family and this shadowy figure. With each step she took, the danger increased, but the promise of justice for her family fueled her resolve. The storm was indeed breaking, and Ellen was ready to face whatever darkness awaited her, driven by the hope of finally uncovering the truth. Ellen spent countless hours researching the man's past, combing through public records and old news articles. Each fragment of information she uncovered sent chills down her spine. The man had been involved in several encounters with law enforcement, all of which painted a picture of a dangerous individual with a penchant for manipulation and deceit. She discovered that, in addition to his connection to other disappearances, he had a history of associating with known criminals in the area. Ellen felt a growing sense of urgency. If she could just find a way to connect her family to him, she might uncover the truth behind their disappearance. With a fresh determination, Ellen reached out to local journalists who had covered her family's case years ago. She shared her findings and expressed her concerns about the man in the photograph. To her surprise, some were willing to investigate further, intrigued by the potential for a new angle on an old case. As her network of support grew, Ellen began to receive anonymous tips. Some hinted at sightings of her family's car before it was found in the dry lakebed, while others spoke of strange activities in the area around the time of their disappearance. Each tip was a thread, and Ellen was determined to weave them together to form a clearer picture. Days turned into weeks, and Ellen's investigation brought her to the outskirts of town, where shadows lingered longer and secrets were buried deep. She visited places her family used to frequent, reaching out to anyone who might have seen something. The atmosphere felt heavy with unspoken words, but she pressed on, her spirit unyielding. One evening, she received an unexpected call from a local mechanic. He had seen the photograph of the man and recalled an unusual incident involving a car that matched her family's vehicle. He described an encounter with a man who had come into his shop looking to fix a flat tire late one night, acting strangely nervous and insisting on paying in cash. Ellen's heart raced as she listened. This could be the connection she desperately needed. The mechanic mentioned the man's unusual request for a specific type of tire that was rarely used, something that could only be found at a specialty shop across town. Ellen knew she had to visit this shop to see if there were any records or surveillance footage that could provide more clues. As she made her way to the shop, the weight of uncertainty settled heavily on her shoulders. What if she was right? What if this man was truly connected to her family's fate? The thought sent shivers down her spine. Arriving at the tire shop, Ellen was greeted by an older gentleman who seemed to recognize her from the news stories. She shared her story, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. The man listened intently, then led her to the back, where he pulled out a dusty ledger from years past. As she thumbed through the pages, a name caught her eye. The same name that had appeared in the reports associated with the man in the photograph. The pieces were falling into place, but Ellen knew she was treading into dangerous territory. Her instincts screamed at her to be careful. As she prepared to leave, she glanced over her shoulder, feeling the prickling sensation of being watched. The shadows outside seemed to grow darker, and a sense of foreboding washed over her. Little did she know, someone was following her, and the danger was only beginning to reveal itself. Ellen's heart raced as she stepped back into the fading light, determined to uncover the truth, yet painfully aware that the closer she got, the more perilous her journey became. The sun dipped below the horizon as Ellen made her way to her car, the weight of the ledger heavy in her hands. The name she had found echoed in her mind, a haunting reminder that the past was not as distant as it seemed. She could feel the presence behind her, shadows blending into the growing darkness. As she fumbled with her keys, her thoughts raced. Who was following her? Was it someone connected to her family's disappearance? With a quick glance over her shoulder, she caught a glimpse of a figure, a silhouette slipping into the shadows. Panic surged through her, urging her to hurry. She finally unlocked her car, the engine sputtering to life, and she pulled away, her heart pounding. With each passing mile, Ellen felt both exhilarated and terrified. She needed to delve deeper into the records she had uncovered. The name from the ledger was crucial, but it was intertwined with a world she had yet to fully understand. As she drove, she replayed her encounter with the tire shop owner in her mind. He had seemed genuinely concerned, but was he merely a witness, or did he know more than he had let on? After returning home, Ellen locked the door behind her, leaning against it for a moment as she steadied her breath. The room was dimly lit, and the silence felt oppressive. She set the ledger down on her kitchen table, its pages whispering secrets of the past. Her computer screen flickered to life, and she began to search for the name she had found. Hours passed as she scoured through online records, news articles, and public databases. The name belonged to a man with a history, one that included brushes with the law, unexplained absences, and connections to unsolved crimes. Ellen felt the pieces of a dark puzzle beginning to align. But with every revelation, she sensed a deeper mystery unfolding, one that could change everything. Suddenly her phone rang, shattering the silence. It was an unknown number. Hesitantly, she answered, "Hello?" A voice, distorted and cold, replied, "You should stop digging, Ellen. Some things are better left buried." A chill ran down her spine as the line went dead. The warning hung heavy in the air. Ellen realized she was not just searching for her family. She was now embroiled in something much larger, something that threatened her own safety. Determined but cautious, Ellen knew she had to confront the man from the ledger. She had to learn what he knew, whether he was friend or foe. The investigation was leading her to a confrontation, one that would test her resolve and put her life in jeopardy. With a sense of trepidation, she made her plans. Ellen would find this man, and she would demand the truth, no matter the cost. But as she prepared for what lay ahead, the feeling of being watched returned, a constant reminder that shadows lurked just beyond her reach. The deeper she delved into her family's past, the more she realized that some truths were better left undiscovered. Ellen's heart raced as she drove through the winding roads leading to the small town where the man from the ledger lived. The air outside was thick with tension, and every passing car seemed like a harbinger of danger. She could feel the weight of her family's unsolved case pressing down on her, urging her to push forward despite the rising fear. Arriving at the modest home, she parked a distance away, taking a moment to collect herself. This was it. She could either uncover the truth or plunge deeper into uncertainty. Ellen approached the door, her breath steadying as she knocked. Moments later, the door creaked open. The man, rugged and weathered, eyed her with a mix of curiosity and wariness. "Ellen," he said, his voice gravelly. "What do you want?" She stepped forward, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "I need to know what you know about my family, about their disappearance." He hesitated, the shadows of doubt flickering across his face. "Why should I help you?" "Because I'm not going to stop until I find out what happened," Ellen replied, her determination igniting the air around them. "You have information that could change everything." He studied her for a long moment, then sighed, allowing her a glimpse of the burden he bore. "Fine, but this isn't a game. You're in over your head." Inside, the room was dimly lit, filled with dust and old photographs. As Ellen sat across from him, she could sense the weight of untold stories. "What do you mean?" she pressed, leaning forward. He shifted uncomfortably, his hands trembling slightly. "Your family's case is connected to something bigger. I didn't want to get involved, but I can't keep silent anymore. There are people who will do anything to protect their secrets." Ellen felt a jolt of fear and excitement. "What kind of secrets?" He hesitated again, casting a wary glance towards the window. "Let's just say there are those who don't like their past being unearthed. They'll stop at nothing to silence anyone who asks the wrong questions." Ellen's heart pounded. She was on the brink of discovering something monumental, yet she also sensed the peril lurking just beneath the surface. "I can handle it. Just tell me what you know." Dit, as the man began to share fragments of information, hints of clandestine meetings, whispered conversations, and a connection to the infamous rumors surrounding Route 66. Ellen felt her pulse quicken. This was the lead she had been searching for, a thread that could unravel the entire web of her family's mysterious disappearance. But as he spoke, a shadow passed over his face, and he suddenly leaned closer. "You need to be careful, Ellen. You're not just facing your family's past, you're stepping into a world that's dangerous. Trust no one." Ellen nodded, her resolve hardening. The investigation was escalating, and with each revelation, the threat loomed larger. Outside, the sun began to set, casting long shadows that seemed to creep closer. "Thank you," she said, rising to leave. "I'll find them." Just as she turned to exit, a loud crash echoed from the back of the house. Both Ellen and the man froze, their eyes wide with fear. The tension in the air thickened, and Ellen's instincts screamed that she was not alone. "Get down!" he shouted, grabbing her arm and pulling her behind a worn-out couch as the sound of footsteps approached. Ellen's heart raced as she realized the warning was no longer a distant threat. It was right at their doorstep. The stakes had never been higher, and the truth was within reach, but so was danger. The shadows had come to claim their secrets, and Ellen knew the time for uncovering the truth was now, or she might lose everything. Ellen held her breath, the echoes of the footsteps growing louder. They sounded heavy, deliberate, as if someone was searching for her. The man beside her peered cautiously over the couch, his face pale and anxious. "Stay quiet," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Ellen's heart raced, pounding in her chest as adrenaline coursed through her veins. She felt as if the walls were closing in, the weight of years spent searching for her family pressing down on her. The man's warning echoed in her mind. They were in real danger, and the mystery surrounding her family's disappearance was not just a cold case. It had become a living nightmare. Suddenly, the footsteps stopped. Silence enveloped the room, broken only by the sound of their breathing. Ellen's thoughts raced. Who was out there? What did they want? She couldn't let fear paralyze her. The weight of her family's fate hung in the balance. The man shifted slightly, straining to listen. A voice broke the stillness, low and menacing. "I know you're in there. You can't hide forever." Ellen's stomach churned. This was no random intruder. It felt personal. Had someone discovered her investigation? Had she been followed? "We need to get out of here," the man urged, his eyes wide with urgency. Ellen nodded, but just as they prepared to move, a loud crash reverberated through the house, followed by the sound of glass shattering. The intruder was inside. Panic surged within her. "Go!" she whispered, pushing him towards the back door. She would distract the intruder, buy him time. She had to protect what little hope she had left. He hesitated, looking back at her. "Ellen." "Now," she insisted, her voice firm. He took off, slipping out the back, while she held her position, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. The shadows danced around her as she steadied herself, clenching her fists. The intruder stepped into view, a figure cloaked in darkness, face obscured. "You're meddling in things you don't understand," the voice hissed. "You should have left well enough alone." Ellen's mind raced. What did they know? What dark secrets were they trying to protect? "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice stronger than she felt. "What do you want?" The figure took a step closer, revealing a glimmering object in their hand, a silver locket, identical to the one her mother used to wear. Ellen's breath hitched. "Your family didn't just vanish," the intruder replied, their tone laced with contempt. "They were taken, and now you're next." In that moment, the gravity of her pursuit crashed down on her. The truth was more sinister than she had imagined. This was not just a search for answers, it was a fight for her life. Just then, a loud bang echoed from the front of the house, the sound of sirens wailing in the distance. Ellen's heart raced. The authorities were on their way, but would they arrive in time? "Run!" she yelled, adrenaline propelling her forward as the figure lunged at her. She dodged, sprinting towards the door, her instincts guiding her through the chaos. As she burst outside, the bright lights of police cars illuminated the night, casting long shadows behind her. But the figure was close on her heels, and as she dashed into the safety of the approaching officers, she could feel the weight of her family's history pressing down on her. The chase was far from over, but with the police now involved, the confrontation was inevitable. The truth was about to come crashing down, and the dark secrets surrounding her family's disappearance were finally ready to be unearthed. The confrontation was swift and intense. As Ellen stepped into the safety of the police's grasp, officers quickly apprehended the figure that had pursued her. It was an unexpected turn, revealing not just a desperate individual, but a key player in a web of deceit that had entangled her family for years. Through the investigation that followed, Ellen unearthed a chilling truth. The disappearance of her sister was part of a larger scheme, an underground network that thrived on the vulnerabilities of those who had vanished without a trace. The figure in pursuit had been a protector of these secrets, an enforcer for those who benefited from the darkness that had enveloped her family. As the pieces fell into place, Ellen learned that her sister had stumbled upon something dangerous. She had been a whistleblower, gathering evidence against the very people who orchestrated her disappearance. The authorities, once skeptical of Ellen's relentless pursuit, now rallied around her, eager to bring justice to light. With their support, Ellen confronted the leaders of this shadowy operation, who had long believed they were untouchable. The truth was ugly, but it needed to be revealed. They were brought to trial, their empire of fear dismantled piece by piece. For Ellen, this was not just a victory, it was a bittersweet closure to a chapter that had haunted her for far too long. As she stood in the courtroom, watching the faces of those responsible for her sister's pain, Ellen felt a mix of emotions wash over her. Justice had been served, but the scars remained. The loss of her sister would never truly fade. Yet she had fought against the tide of despair and emerged not just as a sister, but as a beacon of hope for others who had suffered in silence. In reflecting on her journey, Ellen understood that the quest for truth is often paved with unimaginable darkness. The case had revealed the fragility of life and the depths of human resilience. Though the scars of loss would never fully heal, she had transformed her grief into action, confronting not just the culprits, but the very essence of fear that had stifled her family for too long. As she walked out of the courthouse, a new determination ignited within her. Ellen knew that while her sister's story had reached a resolution, many others remained unresolved. She would carry this torch for the voiceless, ensuring that their truths would not be buried in the shadows. In the end, this was not just about her sister. It was about every person who had ever felt lost, forgotten, or unheard. The search for justice is a relentless journey, one that demands courage, strength, and an unwavering commitment to uncovering the truth. As Ellen moved forward, she pondered one haunting question that would forever linger. How many more secrets lie waiting to be unearthed in the darkness?